in the pursuit of truth and common sense in an unbelievable world. You're listening to the Right Mind Podcast with your host, Todd Schowalter.
Hello, everybody. I'm Todd Schowalter, and welcome to Right Mind. Today, my guest is Mike Faber. He is the host of his own podcast called Earth Station One. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Todd. Thank you for having me up here.
Hey, thanks for joining me. Now, you Earth Station One. Tell me a little bit about that. Then also, you have your own network, the ESO Network. What is that?
ESO Network is a conglomerate of, right now, about 25 different podcasts, with each one has its own geeky theme to it. Some are music-based, some are Star Trek or Star Wars-based, or some talk about just general geekiness, or have, specific topics they talk week after week after week.
When you say geekiness, now what do you mean by geekiness?
Well, what we do on our show is we say you could be a geek about anything. Basically, we do the equivalent of geek equals passion.
Right.
So,
okay.
So you could be passionate about anything. When we've had guests on our show and they say, "Oh, I don't know if I'm right for this show. I'm not really a geek." And I said, "What are you passionate about? Are you passionate about art? Are you passionate about sports? Are you passionate about your car, about, music, about nature, about, thumb wrestling? Anything you could talk about, you could be passionate about."
Sure.
And so if you are passionate about something, you're geeking out about something.
Right.
And so basically, and that's how we define a geek on our show. And we've been doing Earth Station 1 since probably, April 2010.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
So we're coming up on our 12th anniversary, and we've never missed a week of doing the show.
Wow. Since 2010. How many episodes have you had?
We just are about to release, actually, we're recording this as of the 17th of March. Tonight we're releasing our 620th episode.
Wow. Congratulations. That's quite an achievement. Yeah.
Thank you.
This show, it's not even a year old. It'll be a year old next month. And so,
congratulations.
That's it. Well, I'm a big admirer of anybody that can take it for a decade. So, I like the whole idea about kind of rebranding the word geek, because that doesn't really have a good connotation. I mean, you kind of think, oh, the geeks, those are the nerds and things like that. But yeah, you're right. Yes. A geek is anybody that just is passionate about something.
Well, exactly. But, if you think about it, a geek in the old days was somebody who bit the heads off of chickens. So
bit the heads off of chickens. That's all.
They were circus geek. That's what they used to call them.
They bit the heads off of chickens.
They bit the heads off of chickens. It's pretty gross, but
wow. Okay.
And I don't know how geek then got annotated with somebody who watches Star Trek from there, because I've never met a Star Trek fan who has ever bit the head off a chicken.
I was going to say, I don't remember Captain Kirk biting any heads off the chicken or anything.
Well, Mr. Worf maybe, but
maybe,
I don't know.
yeah,
but yeah,
like Spock and all those. Yeah, well, hey, yeah, there's still time. Who knows?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, okay, so you've got what would be, if you had to categorize your big geek attribute? What are you passionate about?
Oh,
I'm a podcast.
Well, I'm passionate about podcasting since I've been podcasting since early 2008.
Oh, okay.
And, at first I started guesting on other shows. I started, then having segments on other shows. And then I figured, why not try it for myself? And so I talked to a couple other podcasters, learned how to do it. And then I started my own show. And from there, I'm a geek about helping people, about teaching people, about learning and such. I actually train and mentor podcasters.
Yeah, do you really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I may have to hit you up for that. Some people would say, I need a lot of mentoring.
Oh, well, everybody does. There's no such thing as an expert. And, there's always something new you can learn. And that's the great thing about podcasting. And that's the great thing about any kind of topic you could think of. There's always more to learn. Anyone who claims they know it all, I want to, have a nice talk with them, because they don't.
Well, of course not. Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, everything's always evolving. And speaking of evolving, I bet you, since I had somebody else on the show recently, we talked about something similar with 10 years ago. I mean, podcasting was kind of in its early stages. I mean, people didn't even know what the heck it was. I mean, it's really come a long way, don't you think?
Oh, very much so. Even today, though, there's so many people out there that do not have a clue what a podcast is.
Right, right.
And, I go to trade shows, or I go to comic conventions, or geek conventions, or, even, just talking in public and everything. A podcast, what's that? I get that all the time. And it's like an online, and I explain to them, it's like either an online talk show, or it could be a drama, or it could be a review. It could be, you name it. A podcast could be about anything. And that's what's cool. And when I teach my seminars about how to podcast, I said, I tell them, don't go out and spend a ton of money with a lot of equipment and such when you're first getting started. Start with your phone. That's all you need to do.
Sure.
And, and that's pretty awesome about it. When you learn about podcasting, start at very basic. You don't, there's people out there who say, oh, if you want to get started on podcasting, you need to buy $100 microphone, and you need to have a soundboard, and you have to have this and this and this. And you don't. That's the thing. I keep on telling people, you don't. As long as you're interesting to listen to, or you have stuff you want to talk about and get the information out there that'll capture people's interests, and you're unique enough that it won't basically be like, everyone else. And that's where, I recently spoke at a university here in Georgia, and basically told the class of students, it's like 90% of you won't make it past your 10th episode if you start podcasting, because there's so much work involved in podcasting. Right. You have to be your own marketing team. You have to be your own editor. You have to be your own host. You also have to learn how to do publishing, and all these different things you need to have to do. It's just not talking into a microphone and going.
Well, and on that note, I mean, you have to, as you mentioned, from a geek standpoint, you have to actually really enjoy doing it. I mean, one of the things that I enjoy about podcasting is, I talk to a variety of folks, and it's every show that I've done, I've learned something, and it's usually something that I didn't set out to learn. Like, I'll have a guest on, and I'll find something out about them that was totally unrelated to what I thought we were going to talk about. So it's always educational and enjoyable for me too. Yeah, and you hit on
that's the best kind of interviews, though, and
sure,
because you don't know where you're going to go, and you don't know where it's going to end, and you know what? I love it. That's some of the most amazing stuff when you're working, and impulse and loving, going improv, basically taking it by the seat of your pants and just going with a good conversation. I would go with that a million times more than like an interview when you're talking to someone and they give one word answers, or they don't really seem like they're interested in being there and talking to you.
Well, no, it's almost, I've tried to explain it to people, because starting out, I'd have my notes and all that. And I thought, well, this is very mechanical and not real. I equate it to, like, say you're going to a party, and say you and I are at a party, and we just meet, and we're both interested in each other's backgrounds. Now, I'm not going to have my page of notes and say, hey, Mike, I'm going to ask you this and this. I know I was going to see you here, so I wanted to ask you this. I mean, it's just more, like you said, improvisational. And it's really, when it's unscripted, it's natural. And I think when you have that kind of flow, it's kind of like people are eavesdropping into a conversation somebody might be having at a party or something like that.
Oh, exactly. And, that's the kind of thing you feel like, oh, they're getting nice and personal in this conversation. I want to jump in and be involved with it too. And that's the cool thing about it. And, it's funny. So many people in real life are very socially awkward, but you get them in front of a microphone and such, and they feel like they can talk up a storm. It's pretty awesome when that happens.
Yeah, it's kind of like social media, for good or bad. You kind of see that. I see you got a lot of, for those of you that are listening, you can't see, but those of you that are watching, Mike, you got a lot of you have a collection. What are those, toys in the background, or are you a collector?
I have so much toys in my office.
You're a toy collector. Tell me about, okay.
Oh, I collect, I used to own a comic book store years ago.
Did you? Okay, well, I'm a cartoonist. I mean, that's
okay. Oh, that's awesome. So we'll talk about that in a sec.
Sure.
But, I collect toys, just knickknacks and stuff, but I also have jumped in years ago. My son actually got me into this, what they call the Funko Pops.
Funko Pops. Now, what's that?
Funko Pops is a plastic replica of certain characters and stuff like that. You recognize Elton John?
So this kind of looks like a bobblehead for those of you that can't see it, but it's a shorter. Okay.
It's like a small bobblehead type, and some of these are bobbleheads.
Okay.
But you can have different type of characters, and they have cartoon characters, they have movie actors, they have historical figures, and sometimes people will take them out of the box. Like some of my early ones I have on shelves behind me or that are unboxed. But now, over the last few years, I've started keeping them in the boxes because the values of these things are going through the roof.
Well, that's just it. Some of these things, I mean, the things that you can collect and the value are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Especially I remember the old Cabbage Patch Kids and all those things from back in, that may be before your time, but those are like, my gosh, they're worth thousands of dollars now.
Back then they were. Now they're worth the material they were paid for, usually.
That's true. You got a lot of different your show itself, do you go after certain segments? Because we talked about, you're pretty much, anybody. What's your audience like? Are they
audience? Variety? It's a variety of audience because we're a variety show. And, we consider ourselves like a magazine style show. Earth Station 1, which could be found both on the ESO network or wherever fine podcasts are found, or you can go to earthstation1.com to find us. Basically, Earth Station 1 I've never wanted to be just a normal one topic show. So we have on the show, the way it works is we open the show, we then do a interview segment like you're doing with me for about 30 minutes or so. And we talk to celebrities, authors, sports figures, other podcasters, writers, artists, you name it, we've talked to them. And it's awesome. And we've met over the years some amazing folks. Some truly, truly amazing folks.
Yeah, I bet. Well, as far as you meet all these people, like I was saying earlier, sometimes I find out things that I didn't expect. You got any interesting stories about somebody that we might recognize that we may not have known about?
Certain ones, but a lot of them, because we have a segment on our show, it's called the Geek Seat. And that's where we came up with the Geek Equals Passion segment. Okay. Because when we asked, Geek Seat, I can't do that. And, you have people, actors who are on science fiction shows and stuff, or movie actors, and they go, no, I'm not a geek. I don't follow Star Trek or Harry Potter or something. And I said, but I know you're really into model making or your sports cars. Yeah, I love mine. I geek out. I see what you're doing there. You get stuff like that.
Right. Like you said, everybody's got their thing that they're passionate about. So
exactly. Exactly. Right. And then, we take a break on the show, and then we have the main topic, and each week it's a different topic, which is awesome. And that usually, goes for 45 minutes or so. And we do a movie review, or we talk about a music franchise, or we talk about TV, we talk about food, we talk about art. Every week it's something different. We even do science and, some sports, and it just depends what the week is. Having 600 episodes, we've covered a ton of topics.
No, I bet, sure. And again, it's Earth Station 1, right?
Yes,
okay,
sir.
Because we'll put that up on the screen while people are watching, and for those people that are listening, that'll be in the descriptions. Well, one of the things also, being informed, you mentioned, being like a magazine. One of the things I've noticed with podcasting is that it's almost as if nowadays, with the mass media and everything, you don't really know what the truth is anymore. Podcasting seems to be the last medium to actually have people out there telling you from the front lines what they're seeing. Do you agree with that?
To a point, but there's also podcasts out there that are very politically slanted, and you have to be very careful, whose toes you step on or so. And it's like any topic, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And it's You know, you can have anybody do, like I mentioned earlier, you can have anybody do a podcast. You can do it. We joke about it and say, you know, basically podcasting in 2022 is like a tramp stamp in 2020, you know, or in the year 2000, and you know, everyone has them. And
yeah, that's just it. And do you think that's I mean, can that be a bad thing too? It's kind of like when go ahead.
It's a completely bad thing because, you know, with radio or television, there is the FCC. You know, there's rules they have to follow. And there's also a lot of fact finders and truth finders and such about, you know, if people make crap up. Right. And with podcasting, it's like the Wild West. There is no guiding thing. I could talk and say, you know what? The earth is flat. And you know what, folks?
I had that person on the show.
I'm sure you did. I did too. You know.
Kidding.
No, but we've actually talked to people who believe that, and it's amazing that, you know, you could have shows based off of any topic. And that's the thing with podcasting. You could talk to somebody about anything that's G-rated all the way up to very adult themes. Mm-hmm. And there's no one to judge it or guide, you know, what people can talk about on their shows. Like Apple and some of the bigger ones, you know, try to give a mature rating and such to some of the podcasts. But if there's no one watching and guiding what people are talking about. And I could say right now, you know, and swear and talk about on my podcast, yes, that's right, folks. Peter Parker is Batman. And, you know, everyone knows he's not. You know, but
right, no, he's Aquaman, isn't he?
Exactly. But you know, but that's the thing. There's no one to guide to say, no, Mike, you're wrong, other than the listeners, and that's the thing.
Yeah, it was kind of like back when the Macs first came out. I mean, everybody got a Mac. All of a sudden, everybody was a graphic designer, you know, and you know, it was most of the stuff was crap, you know, and that's kind of like, you know, you got everybody with a microphone now. Now, I think a lot of that kind of weeds out over time. You know, I mean, you know, like you said, some people fall by the wayside, and it was just like a gimmick that they wanted to do. But what do you think? I mean, from being in this thing for so long with this whole ocean of podcasts, how does somebody break through? I mean, how do you attract an audience? I mean, how do you break through the clutter, so to speak?
It's just plugging away, word of mouth. Advertising and marketing does help, but there are a ton of people out there right now trying to take advantage of people like that. Mm-hmm. You know, I had a poor new podcaster come to me and said they signed up for one of these people who approached them on Facebook about, I can get you 10,000 listeners within your first couple shows, and I can get you knocked up to number 1 on Google, and you know, you could have all this different things, and he ended up paying that person $3,000.
Oh, wow.
And this person didn't know any better. He thought it was legit. And within 3 weeks, the numbers went up, but then they crashed because it was all bots. And the person who he gave the money to, gone with the wind. A lot of times you're going to find they're from Asia or from, you know, the Middle East or another country somewhere, but there are some here in the United States that are doing the same thing. So it just all depends, and you've got to be very, very careful about trying to do that kind of thing.
Plus, it wouldn't be organic. I mean, even if you get like any type of social media, I mean, so you may have 5,000 people on your feed or your Twitter thing or whatever, but do they even really care about anything that you have to say? I mean, that's not very, you know.
No, exactly. You know, when I walk into class, one of the first questions I ask is anybody in here to become rich? And I get a couple people lifting their hands. Yeah, I am. And I tell you, you're not in the right room then, because you're not going to. Or as my wife calls it, my very expensive hobby. So, you know, it's true. It is, because podcasting, to break through, to become a Joe Rogan, to become a Kevin Smith, a Mark Maron, anything like that, a Serial, you know, you need to actually have corporate backing a lot of times, or you have to have a celebrity name attached to you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, those names I mentioned before, most of those were celebrities before they even started podcasting.
Right.
And, and so they already have a name recognition, and they get their fans to listen by just posting, on their regular Twitter feeds or their Instagrams or all those different marketing. Hey, I got another new show and I'm talking to so and so. And, some of the people work hard at it. And, people like Mark Maron, who put out 2 shows a week, who basically is one of the best interviewers out there nowadays. Right. And I would listen to one of his interviews more than I would listen to an interview on 60 Minutes or something.
Right. Well, and you mentioned Joe Rogan. See, my kids, they're a little bit older, but they love Joe Rogan. Okay. And they listen to him all the time. I listen to Joe Rogan and I like him for about, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes, but I mean, apparently he goes on and on forever. What I just said, maybe I have, low attention span, which could be true. That's my geek. I have a low attention span. The
ADD is your friend.
Geeky ADD. What do you think? What was it about Joe Rogan that, aside from having some name recognition, but not a lot, what was it that boosted him into the stratosphere? I mean, that kind of caught me by surprise.
Joe Rogan catered to a certain audience and also pandered to a certain amount of people. And basically, when he is doing his thing, he does have name recognition from, working with the Ultimate Fighting, and then also the acting that he did with Fear Factor, and also with, he was on News Radio years ago. And he was a stand-up comic also. Right,
yeah.
And so he had name recognition, but he, also thrived on controversy and such, and and he caught the ear of quite a few people, and then caught some political ears and such, and they started mentioning his name and such. So it came out that way, and that's how Joe got so big and everything. And now, he's also become very controversial at the same time. He started, you had musical artists who were starting to leave certain music streaming services because Joe Rogan was part of it.
Yeah, right. That was that was over the whole vaccine stuff. Neil Young, I mean, that was pretty recent, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Which I don't really understand. I mean, but it is what it is. But
because and I don't get political.
No. Yeah, I'm not either.
I try to stay away from that.
Right.
I'd rather be funny or or knowledgeable topic. Exactly. Than getting into politics. But the one time I got a 1-star review on my show was because it was after one of the school shootings, and I just mentioned on my podcast that we there should be some kind of control over gun control or something. And I didn't go into it a lot. I didn't even say my views on it or anything. I just said that, and somebody left me a 1-star review on my podcast. Oh, these guys try to be funny and talk about then they dived into politics and something like that. And it was like, dude, that you must not listen to my show, because that's not what we're about.
No, and that's just it. I mean, you're going to have. I've had the same situation both with my show and especially as a cartoonist, especially on the editorial side. I mean, the basis of my show from the get-go and why it's called Right Mind is that, where do we find the common sense factor? I mean, how can we all balance things out? For example, I mean, one of your geek passions may be something that I don't like, and like vice versa or whatnot. But why can't we all just get along? I mean, I don't understand why we're in this day and age. And unfortunately, podcasts have contributed to that, because it's a microphone, as you said, for people to broadcast whatever's on their mind. But I mean, I find it just really a shame that, people can't just get along and accept each other's differing opinions. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, agree completely. There should be some common ground. And what's missing a lot of nowadays is human decency.
Oh, definitely.
And there used to be a time where you would listen, you would go, okay, I respect your feelings on that, but, I might not agree with that, and
Right.
let's move on to a different topic. But now it's like, oh, I don't agree with you. Let me shout for the next 40 minutes why I don't agree with you on this.
Right.
And not even listening to what you're saying. And, my parents taught me better than that.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I think, well, and that's a good point, Mike, because you've got a lot of kids nowadays that have grown up in this era where they have social media, Instagram, all this stuff, and immediately they're spouting whatever's on their mind and they're doing their bullying and trashing. We didn't have that. I mean, I think there was a lot, more of common decency. One thing I wanted to ask you, because we got about 5 minutes or so left. Have you ever been, we talked about, this is like the wild, wild west, but I personally, I mean, I've had some stuff flagged, semi-censored just because of the subject matter. It wasn't really so much that it was untrue. It was just touchy subject matter. Have you had any type of situation where you've dealt with the same thing?
Oh, of course. Every show usually does. And, I always joke about it. And I always say, if I get flagged, that means somebody's listening to me.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a plus. But, I've also gotten a cease and desist letter on my show.
Really? For what?
Well, you're going to laugh. I don't know if you've heard of Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh, of course I had. Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like him, though. He got on my nerves.
Well, Weird Al is acquired taste, and I've been a fan of his since I was way young.
Oh, I know.
And
we can agree to disagree. See? That's us.
See, right? Exactly. And that's totally cool. Yeah. But I got a cease and desist letter from his record label years ago. Because when I first did my show, and probably for the first 200 episodes or so, we used to use the opening of his song "Dare to Be Stupid," which is it was just the music part, not him singing, nothing. And it was less than 30 seconds because there's different rules for using licensing music on a podcast. And I never thought anything of it. We did a voiceover over the music and everything. So I talked to an attorney. He said, "Oh, you should be fine. You should be okay." But I got a cease and desist from the record company saying, "Mr. Faber, we don't want you to be using this music, and if you do not stop forthwith, you will be sued for a certain amount of money and owe us for back, payment for playing this." And guess what? I changed my theme just like that, So but it was funny, and I don't blame Weird Al or anything about it because he probably doesn't even have a clue who I am or anything about
Maybe
that.
He does, Mike. Maybe he's a big fan.
I would hope he would, because we talk very high about him.
Well, no, I like him. It's just after a while, I mean, some of the things, I used to see him in the 80s and stuff, and I worked in a record store way back. I worked in like 20 different places within a span of a year, and that was one of them. And they were always playing Weird Al Yankovic, and it just got to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore, Mike. So there's nothing against him.
It's funny because my wife was the same way, but I converted her into a fan when I took her to see him in concert.
Oh, yeah?
Because he does more costume changes in concert than Cher does.
So you took your wife. Was this like was just like a big anniversary or something like that? Because you have a very understanding wife. I don't know if mine would talk to me if I took her to see Weird Al like on her.
No, it was me and my son. We wanted to go see him, and we said, "Oh, come on, Judy, you'll enjoy it." Because I had seen him years and years before that. Yeah. And she said she became converted to liking him by seeing him in concert because she realized how talented of a musician he is.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I know.
He does have one of the best bands ever playing with him. They could play any song.
Weird Al does.
Yes.
Well, see, I'm learning something. That's what I said. I mean, I learned stuff. Well, I may go back and check him out. I may go back and check out Weird Al. Mm-hmm. Weird Al. Yeah.
And it's pretty awesome because he's actually getting ready to do a tour of his original music, not his covers or his parodies that he does. Yeah. But he's going to be doing a stripped down acoustic show tour of his original songs, and each show he's going to be doing is going to be different. He's never going to repeat the same show twice.
How cool. All right. Yeah. And you're in Georgia, so he comes down. What part of Georgia are you in? I mean,
I live right outside of Atlanta.
Okay. Okay. Great town. I know a lot of people down there. That's neat.
It's a great city.
Oh, yeah. Now, you mentioned your son a lot. And is he getting into podcasting too? I have a son that is getting into podcasting. My son has a new show called The Off Season. It's about sports. And so what about your son? Is he doing anything to get in?
When my son was younger, he used to podcast a lot with me. But as he's gotten older, he grew it. Oh, Dad, that's uncool. I got other things to do, type things. And so now my son is now 22, and he's off at school, and so we don't, he's too busy to be on a podcast.
I got you. Well, he'll circle back, as they say, I'm sure.
Of course, I'm sure.
That's pretty cool. He'll geek out about it down the road. Well, Mike, we're about out of time. Anything else you want to add before we cut out? I mean, Earth Station 1 is the name of your show. And again, that'll be up on the screen and also in the descriptions. The EOS network. Is that what it's called?
ESO.
Oh, let's take that back. ESO network. And We'll put that on the screen too, so everybody can check that out. But you've been a blast, man. I really enjoy talking to you. And you know what? I'm going to validate. I feel it's okay for me to be a geek.
Todd.
I'm going to let you know.
You are a geek. Moments. I could tell.
I'm a huge geek. Precious moments, those little things. No, I don't like that. I'm kidding. That's not. I'm not.
Now you're scaring me, man.
I know. I think we took this. So this is why this show is only a half an hour long. I could really scare you even more. But.
I'm sure you could.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I want everybody to check his show out. It's on all the major platforms. It's been a blast, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Todd. It's been awesome.
Yes, likewise. Well, and thank you for joining me if you've been listening or watching Right Mind. And remember, if you don't have a right mind, you don't have a mind at all. Till next time, bye-bye.
This has been the Right Mind Podcast with Todd Schowalter.